This is a production of Cornell University.
Thank you, everyone. Glad everybody can come and participate. I think we have as a chair of the State Soil and Water Conservation Committee, we are looking at a massive program ahead of us for covering and flaring off gas. And we are going to have a strong educational program to get farmers to participate. Next slide, please. Greenhouse, we raise all our newborn calves are raised in greenhouses until they are weaned, and then the right side just shows cows at their feed bunks eating. Next slide. Southwest corner of our storage. This was covered by Environmental Fabrics out of South Carolina in 2012. It's a 60 mil plastic. You can see the water sitting on top. There's a concrete rib that floats down the middle of it that holds it down, and water pumps on each end that pump off all surface water. Next slide. It's manure collection pits before they're pumped up into the separators on the left, and the right is the elevator that runs out the separated solids into our coverall building, where we then use it to for all the different sources. That's good. That's the coverall building. You can see how it's steaming. It will get that hot, 160 degrees roughly in 24 hours. We want it to heat up like that. And then we use it to bed about 1,200 freestalls, 2 pack barns, bedded freestall there with the solids in. It is super comfortable, better than we went from sawdust, and we've used sand and many other things over the years, but without a doubt, the separated solids are the most comfortable you can use. Next slide. It's that's a sealed container hole where we have our pit slopes from 9.5 feet deep to 13.5 feet deep. Our pump out station is up in about the middle of it. We have this put in at the very bottom of it in case we ever wanted to pump it out dry. We have never had to do that. There is no buildup in it that we can see yet. On the right slide, you can see where the exhaust pipe, where the gas comes out of the cover, and it's headed toward the flare, and it's all just does it by its own pressure. Next slide. On the left, you see the welded seams. They have a special plastic welder that welds all the seams together. And on the right is just the water that collects on it. And then we have, next slide, we have pumps on it. You can see the hose that runs up. There's one on each side with a rib down the center. And we just have timers on them, 8-hour timers, run them wherever you want. It runs into the white pipe there. Each pump has its own. We run it around to the other side of the barn underground into a storage pond, which is about 1 million gallons. It is then pumped underground 6,000 feet to a second pond of 6 million gallons, which we center pivot, irrigate all that on growing crops. We collect all precipitation from the 12-acre barn site, all driveway runoff, all roof runoff, all high and low silage runoff off the bunker. It's all collected and stored and then irrigated in the summer on growing crops. Next slide. The cover or the flare, that's the connection of the pipe running into the flare. The flare is about a 14-foot tall stainless steel tube. It'll turn on generally around July 1 when the lagoon gets hot enough. It starts putting out gas, and it'll run at 1,500 degrees right till about November. And then when everything cools down, it produces a lot less gas and the flare shuts off. I think in the future, especially if they're going to go to carbon credits, we are going to have to look at a way to collect all the gas at all times, even when it's putting out very little in the winter, so that none escapes. Right now, during low flow times, it is not flared. It just flows out into the atmosphere. And we are going to have a mechanism in time to collect all gas, and I would like to be able to find a way to use the gas as a heat source. You're talking a 3-foot wide approximate flame running at 1,500 degrees for 4 to 5 months. There's a lot of energy loss. We have not determined yet how to do that, but that is a goal of ours. Next slide, please. The NRCS Conservation Practice Standards. Next slide. And keep next one again. This is our, back one up, please. Great. That's our satellite lagoon, 6,000 feet away. We built that 3 years ago. It's got a plastic liner in the bottom. And then Environmental Fabrics is coming in, I believe, in April, and they're going to put a cover on that in flare. So it will be plastic on the bottom, plastic on top. The benefits to the covers for the farms. One, you're not getting any precipitation in the manure. So there's no dilution of manure. You have a higher nutrient content in the manure because you're keeping all that precipitation out. In our main lagoon, that's roughly 1.2 million gallons a year that we don't not have to haul as manure, which is at least a $12,000 a year savings for us for not having to haul that manure away, because all that precipitation is kept out, and then we have collected it all and use it as irrigation. This past year, we irrigated, next slide, we irrigated approximately 150 acres, and there you can see the 1,500-foot center pivot that is connected to the pond that is only 200 feet from the storage lagoon, where we pump all our roof and driveway runoff, everything to that site. We ran 8 ton to the acre higher corn silage yield on the acres it was irrigated this year, because we were drier than a normal year. And so it at the rate of return on that, we would have paid for that center pivot in 3 years due to this year's increase in yield to it. We did have a cost share grant through this climate resilient farming program to put the 6 million gallon water pond in and the center pivot. We are now looking at putting in more center pivots due to the benefit we get. Our location of our farm is below Lake Ontario enough and above Lake Erie enough that we don't get enough rain a lot of summers. We are a drier area. So if we can irrigate, it would be far better more profitable for us. Next slide. Keep going, another one. And as chair of the, I guess I'm at the end of it anyway. As chair of the State Soil and Water Conservation Committee, I have been on the committee for more than 15 years and chair for a number now. I believe our job on the state committee is to help farmers meet environmental needs and goals and regulations on their farm. And through that, working with the Soil and Water Committee, we designed a new program a few years ago, the CRF, the Climate Resilient Farming Program, whereby there is dramatic funding increase for that program projected over the next few years. The goal is to cover and flare every single storage in this state. It will be a massive undertaking over a number of years, but if we are going to meet the 2030 goal of reducing methane, it is the best and easiest way for farmers in this state to meet that goal, is by cover and flares on storages. Ours puts out over 5 million cubic feet of gas a year. And so if you did that statewide, it would be a massive difference if you could flare all that off, and even greater if you could find a way to use it, which I think in time will. My time's up.
That was
Thank you.
fantastic, Dale. That was really great. Thank you so much. And also thank you for your leadership in the state, both on the farm and for the state. It's really appreciated.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.